So I've let everybody in, I think, now. So yeah, you're in the Artists Open Houses. We're online with Danny Neon and Darcy and Molly from Creative Vandalism. They're going to take us around their home in Walthamstow on the High Street this evening. And just a reminder that if you want to submit your own video, we've done an open call for 3 to 5 minute videos where you can share your insight into your lockdown studios and maybe some of your creative blocks, or perhaps you have had lots of ideas. You might want to share a bit of insight, and we're going to create a playlist of those, and we've already had a couple in, and it's so interesting. It's a very generous act of you to do, and I think it's an amazing record of this moment in time, and we'll be able to sort of look back on it and see, in 12 months' time at the next art trail, and how different life is. And I'm just gonna mute a couple of you so that you can hear. Apologies for that. Properly, our speakers. Brilliant. So Dan and the crew, hello, good evening. Do you want to give us a bit of an introduction?
No.
We wouldn't have needed to if our film worked.
Which you will be able to watch on YouTube if you so desired.
No, we had made a lovely hour-long documentary that was going to do all the work for us, and we would have just had to sit here and do nothing. But now, instead, we're just going to have to recreate the film verbatim, live, for you all now.
The only problem is, because we thought there was going to be the video that was going to do all the work for us, I started drinking ages ago.
I think you were drinking in the video anyway, so it wouldn't really make much of a difference.
So you're just going to have to put up with that. It's okay, I'm not that bad. It's okay. I'm Danny, anyway. So I'm Danny. Hi.
Hi, Danny.
Oh. And this is
I am Darcy.
Hello.
I'm Molly.
And we are Creative Vandalism.
You should have said that together.
Yeah, we should. We
said
did it in the film.
We said, "Hi, I'm Darcy."
Hi, I'm Molly.
And together we are Creative Vandalism.
This is why I work on my own. Okay, so what do you want to know?
Where should we start?
I think we could, just to kind of set the tone for everybody, let's see if I can play them just the first few seconds of your film so that people can see coming in the front door and a little snippet of what, does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
So, okay, bear with me. I'm going to share the screen with your brilliant film, and then people get a little bit of an idea of what you've been working on and your kind of way of presenting that. Actually, that seems good. So here we go.
Excuse me.
Feel very much at home with you already.
I think whatever's starting is starting. Oh, God. Okay.
Hi, I'm Danny Neon and I'm a visual artist. I've been living here in Walthamstow in London for about nearly 5 years, and before that I've been living down in Cornwall in St Ives for about 10 years.
Okay. So there we go. I was sharing your film. I don't know how bad the lag was. How did it seem to everybody?
Beginning to
Great.
through. Yeah. So how should we do this then? Should we talk about?
Well, it seems like you probably should go straight to your bed and start to talk from there.
I do. Yeah, but then I'm gonna fall asleep if I go to my bed now. I mean,
a little wave.
The time. It's 20 past 8. It's my bedtime.
I'll shout at you. Right, go and show us something.
All right. Shall we do?
Ready to sit up the
Do you want
phone?
me to cameraman?
You want to go fun? You want to be cameraman, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Okay.
But you have to do the microphone.
Yes. Okay. So if Laura, you mute Dan,
Yeah.
and then unmute,
How do you do it?
and then spotlight.
There we go. Yep. Right. I didn't even join Eventbrite. It just is.
Right. Shall we?
I've been muted, but I'm back on now.
Q. What are we doing here?
Hiya, Dan. We can't hear you actually. I think you've got we need to turn your volume on.
I have done it. It's yeah. That's that sound. Yeah. Can you hear us?
Very quietly, yes.
You can hear now, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool, okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Right. Talk us through the different areas of your room and what your work is.
You want to be on mute.
Or should we do the bedroom? Let's start in the bedroom.
Bedroom first.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're doing. That's
Okay. This is where I work. This is as people say, this is where the magic happens. Before lockdown though, this was just a kind of place where I vaguely kind of worked and where I stopped a lot. But it kind of didn't really work too well. So after coming back from, because when lockdown actually started, I was in Cornwall working. Do we know if they can hear us? Because if we've got everything turned off.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I was in Cornwall doing a job when everything went crazy. So I came back home after I finished a job, and kind of the first thing I did was tidy the house up, really, because I'm a bit anal when it comes to how tidy the house has to be, really. So it was like I blitzed every single room in the house, and then I did a few little projects to slowly get myself in a vaguely creative mood. And then I thought, actually, I should utilise this time to make some work. But I also knew that my work area was a bit chaotic. You know, it just did not work very well. So the important bit first was my bed. The bed sort of just stayed where it was, and that's probably where I do most of my work. Darcy is like doing a signal that is implying he wants me to like lay on the bed.
that wasn't. I was just showing it off for everybody.
So
That's highlighting.
But so this is where I sleep. This is where I think. This is where I do. Well, I do lots of things, but you know we're not going to go into that right now.
You want to talk about your workspace?
So I wanted to try and create an environment that I could actually work in here. I'm sort of lucky that it's a big room. So this was my messy space. It was in the video. This is a lot tidier.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of.
And you had a comical bit with a drill.
I had a drill, and I was drilling a sponge, and it was quite funny. But you've lost that bit now. You have to, lost to the anal of time, really.
I mean, they can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah. So this is kind of like my action area, where I can like hit things with hammers and stuff, and drill and cut stuff up, and it's where I keep tools and materials. Then this is kind of like easel area, where I kind of these sort of bigger pieces which I've been doing lately. Because I never.
Are you surrounded, sorry, Danny, so are you surrounded by work that you've done in the past as well as things that you're working on now?
In here, it's mainly more contemporary. It's more stuff I'm working on now. In the other room is old work,
which we'll go over
yeah.
in a minute.
Yeah, which is why I thought we should have started.
Yeah, because we started in there before, but we wanted to see your lovely bed, so we came in here first.
Nice bed. So then I did that, and I had a drawing area and for collaging, etc., etc. But I think we should come to that in a little bit, and then maybe.
But if you're in that room, do you want to talk? If you're in that room, do you want to talk us through some of the things that you are working on now? Then
I think it would be best if we go through the old work first, because it kind of naturally progresses on all the stuff that he's been working on over the years, and you can see where he started, and then we'll come to this later.
Which is why I said start in the other room.
Yeah. but now we see your workspace and how you work, which was the point.
But anyway, okay, so the living room. This is where there's kind of like older work, blah blah blah. What
Should we go in the order?
I'm going to go to the order that I spoke about. Okay.
We'll do it the way the documentary did it.
You might not be able to see it, but this is a really, really old little box I made, because originally everything was three-dimensional, mainly box work, kind of like Joseph Cornell inspired stuff, and this was kind of like while I was at university, so that sort of kind of gives you a vague idea of how old it is. And during the summer I was working in a plant nursery, where we'd be repotting huge trees, blah, blah, blah. And one of the jobs I had was weeding the gravel area. And as you pulled up the weeds, kind of like that, the entire weed would come up and the entire root thing would come up. And as I was doing, I was thinking, these are nice. I like these. And I kind of started putting things in bags to take home. And they were also dismantling some of the greenhouses and getting rid of some of those. So there was these greenhouses with the glass that had years and years of stuff just growing on them, sort of the mold, etc., etc. And that was beautiful as well. So I took some of those sheets of glass and then made these little boxes, which within the glass from the greenhouses, I would press the plants, the weeds, because I just liked the fact that they were weeds. There was stuff that they were being thrown away, and yet in reality they were kind of beautiful. And then I photocopied them, and then I photocopied them again, and then I photocopied the photocopies. So every time you took a photocopy, it was like one step away from what it actually looked like, and then made these little boxes, again with stuff I found on where I was working, and then just sort of put them together. And there's this is where I first started kind of working in series of pieces. And there are probably about 12, 13, 14 of them. And this is, I always want to keep one, and this was my favourite one. So that was that. And then
I think we went to He-Man and Battle Cat.
And then I was looking at other work, old work. Like there's this little chap here, and this is called He-Man and Battle Cat. And I kind of, this is probably where I started coming up with these alternate views, these alternate versions of myself. And this was kind of like, I was pretending that I was this poor child growing up who was living in extreme poverty, and was unable to, my parents couldn't afford toys. We didn't have a television or anything like that. So I would kind of make toys out of I would find everywhere. At the time we were living in St Ives, so a lot of it was stuff I found on the beach. There's like snail egg, whatever you want to call them, compartments. Disgusting, really. And old spider crab shells, etc., etc. And then dogfish egg sack things. And this was like, it's got a little label there that says, I don't have any money to buy toys, Daniel age 37 and a half. So these were kind of these were kind of I call these He-Man and Battle Cat, and there was a little story. You know, kids in the playground when I was a kid were talking about all the stuff they were watching on TV, and it was like, well, I don't know what that's like because I don't have a television and I don't have any toys. So I would create this entire imaginary world in my mind that what these things possibly look like. So that was that, you know. So that was, and I wanted this to carry on and be a continual little series of work. But I didn't make another one until last year, the end of last year, when I don't get it.
I was going to say it was here, but now it's not there.
I was walking down Palmerston Road. I don't know if you can see it really. And in the bushes, I found this. Yeah, I found this really, really sort of disgusting, manky old bong that someone had made. And as I walked past it, I thought, wow, that is so rank, that's disgusting. But I carried on because, you know, I was trying to be a good member of society. Carried on walking a little bit, and then I saw a plastic bag sort of blowing in the wind down the street, and I thought, you know what, I'm going back and I'm taking that bong home with me because I wanted to make something out of it. And as I looked at it, I thought, it kind of looks like a really, really, really crap Dalek. And I thought, this is going to be a continuation of my toys that I make out of just things I find around me. But as I was looking at it, I thought, no, it's too simplistic. No one's going to really get it. It needs those little bits that, you know, those like the baubles on the bottom of the Dalek. And I thought, how am I going to recreate that? And so I thought about it, and then I thought, nip down to the Checkers. Was hanging out around the outside area of the Checkers. The Checkers is I don't know if you remember these things. They're called pubs, and they're places that people used to go to back in the olden days and drink alcoholic beverages with other human beings. Whether we ever experience those things again, I don't know. But anyway, I started going down all the ashtrays and just sort of picking up all the dog ends, because I thought, if I cut those up, they're going to look really amazing as those little baubles on the bottom of Daleks. And it was a weird experience. I think I had a bit of a cold at the time, and I had my big parka on. It was winter-ish, and I was just going through these ashtrays, and I'd not been in there for a while, and quite a few of the people kept coming up to me and saying, "Look, listen, mate, do you want some tobacco? Look, I'll give you a whole packet of cigarettes." And it was like, I'm not homeless. I know I look homeless, but I'm not homeless. This is actually for an art project. But I don't think anybody believed me. But anyway, I got enough dog ends, and there is my Dalek made up out of an old bong and dirty old dog ends. And I kind of like it. It's beautiful to me. It kind of, what I like about it is, especially like today, you probably can't pick it up, but because of the moisture, there was still a bit of the liquid in the bottle, and today you really see it condensing, and that, when you can see that liquid condensing on the inside of it, that's when I really, really like this piece. It's quite disgusting, I know. Anyway, let's go on to these bits here. Should I talk about these bits?
Might as well. I mean,
I just waffle?
In the documentary, that's where we then had a break from you and went on to what me and Molly were doing. But we could, while we're in the room, we could just do all the bits that are in the room.
Can we do all? We just whiz through my bits of work before talking about what I'm doing now. Then you can talk, and then I can have a quick wee.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. So these were a series of 3, a little triptych called. I just called them Heads. Exactly, and they were called Heads. Originally, I'd been sitting there in my little studio, and I was
the original one.
No, when I was originally playing with just some burnt matches, as you do, and I had this old blown light bulb, and I decided I thought it was funny at the time to cover a blown light bulb with matches, because I kind of thought they said the same thing, really. And then I realised basically that was an absolutely awful idea anyway. But I did also in the studio have lots of dolls' heads, and I kind of, it was like I looked at the light bulb and then looked at the doll's heads, and then I went back to the light bulb, doll's head, light bulb, doll's head. And at the time, I don't know whether I've actually admitted this. No, I might. No, I'm not going to. No. Anyway, no, I'm not going to admit what I was just about to say. But I came up with the idea, oh, it'd be really cool to just cut all the hair off the dolls' heads and then put the matches into the dolls' heads. So different dolls had different size heads, blah, blah, blah. So therefore, the burnt matches, even though they're the same size, they kind of give the impression of a kind of different length of hair. Not that anybody cares, really. But the whole concept behind it was, like, dolls are made to be held. Like little girls or little boys, when they're playing with dolls, they pick the doll up, they rock it in their arms, they talk to it, they play with it, they drag it around by their arm or whatever. But these dolls, if these heads were attached to a body, you couldn't actually do that, because the matchsticks would make the whole thing so ridiculously brittle that you couldn't do anything with them. You know, if you started playing with them as you would with a normal doll, then the matches would break and it would be completely ruined. They became very brittle. And I like that, playing with the idea of objects not being able to fulfill their original destiny or their purpose, the thing that they were designed to do. And I know some people might think that's really sad. So there is a side of it that is really sad. These dolls can't be held and they can't be loved and hugged because they're going to break. But there is also the other side, that they could be actually ridiculously vain, and they're just going, keep your hands off me, I don't want you messing with my hair, because you're going to mess my hairstyle up. So there is that. So you never know which way, what the actual reality is. And kind of,
Danny,
yes.
Before you move on, there's a little chorus of people in the chat demanding to know what you wouldn't say.
Okay.
What you were going to say?
You wouldn't say.
What was
What
it?
wouldn't I? No, because it makes me.
I had to ask. You don't have to
I
answer.
will tell you. At the time when I made these, it was the time. It was the time that Jade Goody had cancer, and I kind of really didn't like Jade Goody because she was a racist, nasty person. So when she got cancer, which was obviously horrible, there was a side of me that was thinking, hang on a minute, people are forgetting, just because something nasty is happening to her and horrible and sad, you're forgetting what a little sort of, there was a side of her that was quite nasty. So at the time, that's why I did shave the hair off a couple of dolls, because I was gonna, See, that's why I didn't want to tell you. Now I feel really bad.
It seems quite topical, though.
Sorry?
It seems quite topical, though, I think.
Yeah, you know.
No, exactly. So in the end, I was right.
I mean, I think it's probably fairly safe to say that we should do more than just shave off racist heads. I don't know,
Exactly.
you know.
But anyway, that's like, shall I
It's
carry
not
on?
that bad in
Does
hindsight.
anyone else need, did you want to ask anything else?
Anything else in
Shall
the
I-
chat?
No,
Asking? Or should we carry on to the next piece?
keep
Shall I carry
going.
on? Shall I keep going?
Yeah.
All right,
Keep
okay. This is, you probably can't really see, this was one of 3 pieces, and they were my prototypes for the ideal wife. Okay, so I had found and come into my possession quite a few really lovely 1950s, 60s household appliances, or labour-saving devices. This particular one is a floor polisher, and there was another one which I don't have anymore, which was a handheld Hoover, and I kind of looked at them, and I began to sort of look at them in a sort of slightly perverse way, and was thinking, just imagine, you know, not that this is the way I think, because I like to create alternate me's to create pieces of work, and I was thinking, wow, these are kind of like these could be like your ideal wife, you know, and like they can do all your housework for you, and while you're busy working and being manly, like I'm really good at doing. But how could they be sexy? So this one was obviously a floor polisher with its two rotating heads, and I kind of thought they just looked like some lovely bosoms. So this was I had to talk a female friend of mine to come shopping with me to buy this brassiere, you know, because we kind of, I said to her, look, I need to buy a quite nice frilly bra, but I don't want to go on my own. It'll be weird. So she said, I'll come with you. So we were looking through, I think it was TK Maxx in Truro Road, and we were going through the brassieres, and she was saying, what about these ones? And and I was going, oh, I don't like those ones because I want to be able to look down inside them. And then I thought, there's me worrying about how weird I'm looking. And now I'm having these conversations with this lady about how I want to look down inside brassieres. I was like, it didn't really work. But anyway, because this was there, I kind of like wanted to, instead of chicken fillets, these were filled with dusters, you know, so that these ladies could do my cleaning for me. But then they'd know how to satisfy me in the bedroom.
Didn't you make another one that was a bloke one?
There was a bloke one because I didn't want to, you know. Yeah, okay, it's in the spare room.
Spare room for the washing.
Come with me. Sticking all the washing. You might not even be able to see it because of. See, this was the male one. Can you see it?
Sort of.
So it was a Hoover.
It's a bit backlit,
yeah,
from the daylight. Yeah, there we go. That'll be good.
There you go. So this was the male one, but the cables had been intertwined within the box, and then the plug removed. So kind of, he was completely capable of doing everything that he needed. He could have cleaned the stairs. He could have done whatever, but he had somehow made himself impotent, so that he had to have other people do the work for him. Really, kind of, you know. So that, you know, I'm not like that.
No, you do a lot of the washing up and laundry and housework around here, actually.
So that was that. There was this. Should we do the?
Yeah, do I'm Not Just a Mother as well.
This is I'm Not Just a Mother, which originally was just a photographic piece. I don't know if you can see. It's not too much glare. That's cool. That's and it was because I pretty much had brought Darcy up basically. I mean, since he was about 6 or 7, really. But personally, I never had any sort of ideas of male, female, gender roles, etc., etc. You just get on and you just do whatever you do. You know, I never personally had never really differentiated between the roles. You know, we're just people as far as I'm concerned, and we just get on and do whatever we have to do. But there was, you know, I was continually being bombarded with things like, you know, father's rights and, you know, men dressing up as Spider-Man and climbing up, blooming whatever, you know. And there was a side of me that I think, because of my own circumstances, found it very difficult to relate to them, because I'd never experienced it. For me, it was just, I brought Darcy up and that was it, pretty much, basically, to, you know, to the greater extent. But then I kind of like started thinking about, you know, in reality, people, whoever you are, especially if you're a single parent, whether you're male or female, you end up fulfilling both those roles, whatever those roles are. You know what I mean? So you're the father figure and you're the mother figure, whatever they are. I think they're ridiculous concepts, but I know they exist for a lot of people. So I kind of made this fake me where I was like, okay.
Shall I zoom in just to give a better view?
Again, I always end up wanting to be this failure. I always want to make myself look stupid or like I'm a failure if I'm going to be the centre of the piece of work. So here I was being a single parent and a male single parent and father, bringing up a kid, and obviously the whole concept of like male female thing. The mother is the one that feeds their child. The mother is this that nourishes, blah blah blah. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be the one nourishing my child, but in a really, really shit way. So I kind of, in the studio I was in, I got this bed and it's dirty and filthy and I spilled milk over it. So it's absolutely stank, it was mouldy. And I managed to get this old milk thing in me thing. It's not, I forget what, no, it's not a milk churn, that's a milk churn. It's one of the milk will go from the cow straight into this and then into the big vat or whatever. But it was old and there was mould in it. And I thought, no, I'm going to leave the mould in it. And these pipes as well, I sort of attached these pipes and gaffer taped them to my nipples. But they were really dirty, grubby rubber pipes. And so it was dirty and horrible. So whatever goodness I was going to give to my child was going to be tainted. It wasn't going to give them the full nourishment that they need because it wasn't a proper, family with two parents, good God forbid. We then ended up turning it into a performance piece when we left St Ives down in Cornwall as a party piece and a farewell to my studio, etc. And we did it, set it all up, and we had Darcy and another friend dressed in these like really awfully made nappies, and they were drinking Baileys, and I was drinking vodka throughout the whole night. As yet again, this whole symbolic sort of gesture to the fact that I couldn't cope, that I was a failure, that I was rubbish at bringing him up. Even though I'm baby okay. I mean, even with the picture, there was like, because it was kind of based on what's his name, the guy who was murdered in the bar. I forgot his name. Don't care. I don't actually care. But he was like had a bit of paper in his hand, so that's why I have my iPhone in my hand, and I was looking at photos of Darcy and of myself and my father, sort of on the floor. But then if you can't see it, but underneath there was like Playboy magazines and like screwed up tissues and stuff. It was. Anyway, so
that one.
So that is that. That kind of. Then I started looking quite seriously into gender, I suppose, in a weird way, and started looking at. I started collecting like 1950s, 60s children's books and children's annuals, and there were quite a few of them. There was one particular one which was a 1969 one. Actually, there's a really shitty drawing of it, and it was called School Friend. And it had this really awful drawing on it, and I thought, I want that, but I want to put myself in the face, So therefore, it was the young girl was drying her hair after a swimming lesson or something. But then I wanted it to be me, and so therefore thought I would change it to School Fiend and sort of School Friend. And that kind of then led me on to kind of wanting to put my face into a lot of female roles.
Just the bits in there.
Yeah. And if I quickly go in here, sorry, am I going
No.
Okay. So then
It's absolutely fine.
Which then went on to these kind of things where I kind of really, they're quite horrible really. They are really quite horrible. And I was then wanting to kind of, I don't know, I'll have to probably step back a bit because in between that was another piece of work. There was a little break. Yeah.
So it's all kind of. And then the next piece was.
Well, I'm going to have to explain that really in a way. At this point, I kind of wanted to look into sort of various feminist manifestos. So literally just went into a bookshop and just bought loads of manifestos. But the one that just really grabbed me was Valerie Solanas' Scum Manifesto, because it was on one side it was completely ridiculous, the things she was saying, but also on the other side she made some ridiculously valid points. And then also she was a very funny writer, but she was making these points that in her view men were incomplete females, and therefore men were incapable, as what she say, a male artist is a contradiction in terms. She used to say that because men are incapable of feeling empathy, and therefore because of that they cannot, it's impossible for a man to create true art. They want to try and but because men are men and they want to control everything, they also then wanted to try and control art, and they used art to then sexualize women, control women, blah 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 blah, etc etc etc. So long story slightly shorter, I kind of again made this alter ego of myself who wanted to start, who kind of wanted to be a disciple of Solanas, and kind of like wanted to, because although this character did, all he wanted to do was make real art, wanted to make truly empathic, beautiful works of art. And the only way he knew that he could do that was if he had this journey of becoming this complete woman, sort of leaving that male side of him behind. So but he wanted to also, he wanted to catalogue this journey that he was going on. So therefore, this character of mine was then he wanted to draw himself as he was going and do stuff about his journey. But that was ending up with this, where he was, in his mind, he was making work about himself becoming a woman and wanting to show you that he was becoming a woman. But annoyingly, all he was doing was sexualizing himself. So therefore, he was ending up being a complete failure. I know that it doesn't make sense.
Like trying to follow the disciple of the route, but then failing.
Failing because ultimately there's nothing you're gonna fail, because it's the section, the sort of the vibe that he was trying to follow was complete nonsense. But then I also like the fact that it was creating this weird vibe of like within sort of pornography there is this whole thing, it's sort of like. Especially when it's done from a male gaze, it's a very dark, dodgy area, and I kind of like the fact that sort of some guy will be looking at some sort of something and then looking at, wow, look at that, and then suddenly looking up at the face and there's this bearded, bespectacled old man staring back to them. So it's almost like you're getting aroused by this image, but oh my god, you're staring back at yourself, and it's kind of like a weird, freaky sort of mess. But anyway, so I should shut up probably.
No, let's want to go to the next bit.
Danny, is it fair to say it's been a really reflective time for you, because it feels to me like you're going back over your whole progression, and is that
well, because the stuff that I've been doing when I eventually got myself into making work again was I returned to some collages I had done, which were very simplistic collages. Which were pretty much which were kind of based on they literally were. So someone a while back just gave me a hell of a load of 1960s Playboys and penthouses, etc., etc. And I also had these like old visitor guides to various cathedrals in England, and I kind of ended up sort of putting the two together, and it's kind of like this weird. The problem is, the longer I work on these, it's kind of like the more levels it works on. There's sort of female goddess, there's exploitation, there's the sort of sexual depravity of the church. there's so many ways it works, and ultimately, any of those areas kind of work perfectly fine for me, if you know what I mean. Because throughout, there's a lot of, there was the piece of work which I was just going to quickly look at, which was in the hallway, which was, is that okay, quickly going there?
I wouldn't worry too much because you've been talking quite quickly, so.
Okay. So these were kind of,
this is following on from your sort of 50s childhood books,
these were kind of when I first actually really went into two-dimensional, instead of like in three-dimensional work. And it was after there was been a fire in my studio, and because my studio was below a kitchen, and the whole place got completely gutted and water damaged. Loads of books were damaged, and it was quite a cathartic time anyway, with personal issues going on as well, and ended up making this new book out of an old Peter and Jane book, a book on British artists, and very, very tame 1940s-esque porn, I suppose, really. But I put them all together and created a new story where I even put up the words and the letters. And this probably was the first time I became a little bit more upfront about the darkness of my work. Before, it had always been, it had been quite hidden deliberately, because I just didn't want to offend anybody, really. And then whilst all this stuff was going on, this I did purely for myself as a kind of way to get through a sort of pretty hideous time, really. And then I kind of thought, no, stuff it. I'm just from now on, I don't really care if I offend anybody. I'm just gonna kind of make the work that I want to make the work that I want to make, really. Which that led on to those things, and that kind of,
it's like a mix between Peter and whoever, Janet and John books.
Yeah.
Never mind the bollocks, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite never mind the bollocks.
Yeah.
He got given a load of Playboy magazines, and he put Jack's put them in. Almost a lot. This is in his house.
But there is so much, and I don't want to bore you all. So I will probably finish. There are bits we have missed out completely, but I will just finish talking about the one thing I'm doing right now, I suppose.
I suppose if there's anything that people have missed out, they can go and watch the YouTube video that we made.
Yeah. So this kind of, all of it has kind of led almost to this kind of almost Toulouse-Lautrec-esque thing. So I started redrawing these other small collages into big drawings, which then got me into big drawings. And then kind of started doing these, which are kind of, to me, they're kind of like quite Toulouse-Lautrec-esque posters, as far as I'm concerned. But they are just complete remakes of these Penthouse. I'm going to do Playboy Mayfair covers. But all I'm going to do is then change the face, which obviously I've left for last because I really don't want to do it. And then it will just always be my face looking back out at you on these sort of 1960s tacky, cheap porn. And the whole thing is because they're so blooming innocent. I mean, I look at kids today. Kids today can find the most grotesque, hardcore pornography on their telephones, and you know, without any trouble. Yet when I was a kid, I used to have to walk down the canal, and I had to be rummaging around in the bushes, you know, just to find a copy of blooming Reader's Wives, and that was it. And even that was completely tame. So this is kind of like,
so just to emphasise, so your face is going to be
my face will be there, staring out at you in the same way that these are. So it's kind of like it's kind of creating this weird. It's going to be slightly disturbing and sort of not very tasteful, but in reality, it's ridiculously tame. But it's more what it suggests is the darkness. See, ultimately, for me to make a successful piece of work, as far as I'm concerned, is first of all, it's got to be vaguely visually acceptable. You know, it's got to draw you in. It's got to be okay quality. You know, it's got to be in some way visually attractive, and then I kind of want it to make you laugh, ideally, because I think laughter is a very powerful weapon. But then once you laugh, I want you then to kind of feel a little bit awkward that you have laughed. So that, for me, those three things are, for me, what adds up to a successful piece of work. But I'm not gonna, yeah. So ultimately, I'm gonna also just finish on my little bit, I suppose, that the lockdown for me has been good for me because I've not felt guilty that I'm not at work. Most of the time, because I've been self-employed my entire life, if I'm not working, I'm not earning money, and therefore, sometimes I find it really difficult to spend time in the studio or to make work because I feel guilty, because society tells me I should be just earning money and buying things and blah blah blah, and I don't want to do that. All I want to do is be making work. Whereas suddenly these last few months I can't work, so I don't have to feel guilty about not working. So it's actually freed my mind and allowed me to not feel guilty about making work. So that's it, really. I should let the others talk now.
Brilliant.
Should we leave questions till later?
Yeah, Danny, there's a couple of questions.
There are a couple of
Or do you want some
now,
questions?
yeah.
Okay. Should we go on to the desktop?
We can come back to them, I think, and hear from Darcy and Molly if you like. You have time to think about them.
We're all right with doing the questions now while they're fresh in people's minds.
Yeah, and you've just been talking.
I didn't want you to run out of time, Molly, because you're being very generous. But you and Darcy should probably.
Yeah.
We can squeeze in, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be able to.
Okay, you go for it.
If you unmute the desktop.
Hi, can you hear me? No.
Yes, we can.
Cool.
There we go.
Sorry, I waffle way too much.
Not at all.
You waffled so much. I've had about 3 beers.
Can I have one?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, we've had quite an insight into your workspace, and I wonder, you talked before to us about how you've reinvented it, but I don't know if you did today because I've been trying to do technical feats in the background. But I think it's one of the things about open houses that is quite a treat, is to see how people set up their workspace. And you've managed to create what I thought were 3 workspaces, but actually if your bed is your thinking space, there's like 4 different types of workspace. You have a messy space and a sort of digital space and a
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Messy, easel, drawing board, computer, bed.
Yeah.
5.
That's brilliant. And I think there's a couple of questions. So one is from Chloe, who says she's really interested to know what your favourite part of your work to date is. Where, what is it that stands out for you, I think?
Can we just say, first of all, there was a bit of a running joke with the documentary where every time he would talk about a bit of work, he would finish off being like, I think this is my favourite bit of work at the moment. And he said that about pretty much every single piece in the documentary that we made.
You could have made a drinking game out of it.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a Bruce Forsyth kind of catchphrase then.
It's a good thing that I like it'd be awful if I hated my work. If I finished a piece of work and thought, well, that's utter tosh.
Yeah.
I kind of have, because they are all ridiculous. They are all self-portraits, really. I know all of us as artists, there's a little bit of ourselves come out. No matter what we do, it's a bit of ourselves that goes on to that piece of work. But for me, these are me. Mm-hmm. Every single one of them is my darkest secret areas of my life.
That's brilliant.
Really. So, I've had to come to terms with that.
Adam's asked a question, but he's also aware that you needed a toilet break some time ago now.
I'm okay now. I've been.
Okay. So his question then is, have you read A Woman's World by Graham Rowley?
No, should I?
I don't know. Should he, Adam? He might be frantically typing a message.
Problem is, you know, if I'm going to be 100% honest, I kind of, even when I was doing that the Penthouse magazine, there was some really bizarre. There was, you know, people go on about they only ever used to buy them for the articles. I think they were right, because there are some ridiculously interesting articles in those magazines. And I ended up buying about 3 books that are actually written, that there are articles about in that magazine. And then I buy them, and then I start reading them, and I think Solanus's Scum Manifesto was just too funny and also very short.
You're not a big reader.
I'm not a big reader.
Adam, I think we can hear you if you ask your question.
Yeah, no, it's just that I just thought that would really resonate with you. It's Graham Rule is the author, and he it's a remarkable process of similarly cutting up magazines from the 50s and rewriting a story. It's a wonderful piece of work, so I really recommend it. I think it would really resonate with you.
Oh, cool. I will look at that.
Thank you.
It's one of the...
Oh,
one of the what? You got muted.
I accidentally muted you, Adam. That wasn't...
I want to know what it is. I want to know if it's one of the... You might have about to have said it's one of the books I use to keep my table level. I don't know.
It's one of the best books I've ever read on lots of levels.
Really? Cool.
On lots of levels. It's very beautiful to look at too.
Oh.
Good. Have a look at it.
So we, I'm a bit aware that we have gone a little bit off grid and off plan and off tonight. So shall we hear from Darcy and Molly so that people may be waiting for their dinner? Yeah. Thank you so much, Danny.
We'll talk here. And then
yeah, go
you
for
go
a wee.
wee.
Go for a wee. Hi guys.
Where to start?
I'm quite short. I need the camera lower.
I'm quite tall, and I'm sitting on a sofa as opposed to a chair. First of all, I know we introduced ourselves at the beginning, but I'll say again, I'm Darcy, this is Molly, and together we are Creative Vandalism. And what Creative Vandalism is we're a small group of people. There's a couple of other people, not just us, but we're the people in charge. And we make stuff, independent media production stuff. That's our kind of forte. And we make films, comic books, and we even have plans on branching out to video games. So that's what we do. That's what we've been trying to get started doing ever since we left uni.
And then lockdown happened.
After we left uni, the first thing we did was we made a comic book, which actually I'll go and get right now.
Yes.
If you want to carry on talking about how
So
lockdown has affected us, I guess.
So basically, Darcy had just released the first issue of the comic book. We'd done a launch party, we had a really nice time, we did a bit of DJing. Then we were going to start gearing up to start filming for a web series that we have called The Stew, which is set in Walthamstow. Stowe, get it? So this is the comic book. So this is what we launched in February. And it's a comic book about fighting Nazis in a sci-fi dystopian future. Well, present, but alternate universe.
Yes, it's kind of, I'll talk about the comic book
talk about
now.
it.
I was going to talk about it later, but I'll talk about it now. So it's a science fiction dystopia comic book. It's very pulpy, so it's very tongue-in-cheek, very over-the-top, very ridiculous. But it's set in a kind of alternate universe. I don't like saying alternate history because it's not like alternate history fiction is you tend to pick a historical event and then you change it. Like, for example, Nazis winning World War II, for example, which is done for the Wolfenstein series. But what I've done is I've just taken history and I've just turned it on its head completely and made it ridiculous and over the top and sci-fi. And in this universe, America is a fascist superstate that rules the world. And I came up with this idea in around 2014, really, just when Obama was president, funnily enough. And then, of course, in 2016, Donald Trump was doing his election campaign, and he started talking about doing a Mexican border wall. And I quite like that as kind of like a science fiction concept, which is why I came up with The Wasteland Beyond the Wall. And it's set in Mexico under this fascist America dictatorship, who have kind of turned Mexico into this industrial wasteland to fuel their war machine as they tighten their grip over the world. And it follows this girl on the front cover, who is, because it's kind of like a Western, visually and tonally, it's basically a Western set in Mexico, but with sci-fi stuff. And she's like your typical stoic gunslinger, woman of few words, shoots first, you know. And she's also got psychic powers, because I really wanted to drive home that kind of pulp sci-fi where it's just a bit silly and doesn't really make much sense. And it's about her and this cyborg who go on a odyssey across Mexico, and that's what it's about, really. Yeah.
So before lockdown happened, we'd just released the first issue of it. We were going to start working on our web series, The Stew, which is, again, it's kind of like a very pulpy...
It's kind of like old 70s Doctor Who.
Yeah, that was kind of the vibe we were going for. Something kind of a bit...
B-movie.
A bit Quatermass in the Pit, but
yeah.
On steroids, I guess.
Yeah, but very like surrealist, absurdist humour thrown in all over the place.
So we'd cast our actors. We were going to start casting for the extras. We were going to start getting locations. One of the guys that works with us is a guy called Roger McTodd, who has actually shown on the art trail with us before. And he's our special effects guy. So we needed to get locations like blocked out and ready so that he could make them if we needed to blow them up.
He also made this, which is a prosthetic chicken man head. Because in one of the episodes, we've got the baddie are these mutant chicken people, because there's a mad scientist who has decided to turn people into chickens, because there's so many chicken shops in Walthamstow that there's like no demand, that the supply demand for chicken has just gone out the window, and they need chicken. So he's deciding to turn humans into chickens. And
you can get the kind of gist of where we're going with this. But so we were going to start doing pre-production in May, and then we were going to start doing pre-production in May, and then hopefully, pre-production March, special effects making in April, and then May was going to be when we were shooting. And then lockdown happened, and we couldn't film anything. I got really sick. Darcy got really sick.
Because we both work in a pub, so
we both work in pubs. So we get the germs first. Whenever there's something going around, we always catch it first. And it was not fun. It was really not fun. And we were trying to find a way to like put creative energies in where we would like, because our plans had completely gone out the window. So we had to try and find something to, I guess, throw ourselves into. So like you've been doing a lot more comic book artwork.
Because the schedule kind of was, okay, first of all, let's do the comic book. Because I can do that by myself. I can write it and illustrate it, and we can make it. We'll hopefully sell a few copies and make a little bit of money. And then once we've made a bit of money off of selling the comic, we can then put that money into the budget for episode 1 of The Stew. And then we can start making that. So we released this in February, and then we were going to start production in March.
And we sold quite a few.
Yeah, and we made a little bit. We made enough to get started on production. And then because lockdown happened, and even though we got furloughed, 80% of your wages, especially when you're working in a pub,
when you're on minimum wage,
isn't much to live on. So we had to kind of dip into the money that we had reserved for production on food, basically. So
It's been difficult, but it's also because we've been furloughed, we've kind of had the breathing space to kind of be like, okay, so we can't do the stuff that we were gonna do, so how about we just start doing some random other stuff? So like I've started writing things.
Yeah. I've written a lot of the comic book. I mean, I kind of had a rough idea of where the story was going to go, but I've now like detailed written quite far into the future of the story, and I've been getting lots of concept art done. I guess we should talk about our workspace. Actually, as Dad did. Can you? I was going to say, should we switch it over to the phone so I can then take you through how we've been working?
Yeah. So I can film you. Because you sit there.
Unmute. And then.
Okie dokie. How do I get it back? How do I get it to not gallery view on the phone?
Oh, I've spotlighted you so we can see Darcy, but we need the volume turned up a little somehow.
There we go. So this is my workspace. I don't work in my room really unless I'm writing, which I do in bed sometimes. But this is kind of my little setup. Oh, look, it's going on forever. But this is like where I do concept art. Really, those are some stick figures. They will become Nazis at some point. But I've been doing lots of character art. Yeah. So this is like the main character. I've been doing. Actually, yeah, you should actually see it. I'll lay it out so you can see it properly. So yeah, I've just kind of been focusing on getting the characters' like designs nailed and sorted, and developing them really. So I just sit here drawing lots and lots and lots. This is what I've been doing this week.
That's a really
drawing lots of Nazis because we need it's an action comic book. It's violence is one of the big selling points. You know, I want people to read it and be like, oh, wasn't it really cool when that Nazi got beheaded or when that Nazi got impaled on a katana? So these are the Nazi like foot soldiers, which is what I've kind of been spending my past week on really. I would have some like coloured concept art, but while I'm here, I'll show you some more pages of the comic book. So yeah, there it is. I like I said, I wanted it to be very pulpy, very tongue-in-cheek, very in-your-face. So there is the American flag with a swastika on it, because they're American Nazis, and there's the Mexican border wall. But I kind of wanted to more focus on the characters and kind of building them up slowly. Like I said, it's very tonally a Western, so it's very slow, and you get to kind of see the characters just kind of almost doing nothing, but I think it helps you get to know them better. Here is the main character just finding a barn and going to sleep and watering her horse. But I feel like you get to know her a bit and know that she's nice to horses, which you know is important.
It's a very key concept in terms of if you're a movie screenwriter, you have moments of like the save the cat moment where it's like you introduce something about a cat.
And here's some. These aren't. Well, they are Nazis, but they're not like. These are bandits, but they are fascists. But yeah.
When you about the stuff that you've been doing.
Molly, you're very quiet, just so you know, it's hard to hear you.
Yeah. I don't know where to begin.
So like the stuff where it's like the details that you've been trying to put in. How you do it, how do you get from these guys to the full colour version? So do you start with pencil?
I'll start with pencil, yes, Molly, I do. I do it all with pen and pencil. Pen and pencil? Pen and pencil and paper, that's what the words I'm looking for. See, this wasn't really covered in the documentary, so I'm making this up as I go along now, which is why it's very waffly. But no, as you can see from the stick figures I initially showed, I sketch out in pencil, and then I go over it in pen, and then I scan it in on the computer, and then I colour it in, and then it looks like that.
How do you do textures and stuff, for instance?
Oh yeah, one thing I've done here, if you look closely, it's like got old school dot shading, like on really old comics from like the 50s, I guess. And that was yet again a stylistic choice to really drive home the pulp look of it, because of course pulp comes from old comic books that were printed on cheap pulpy paper. So I wanted it to kind of have that. So what I do is once I've coloured it in, I shade it, and then I put a half-tone screen effect on it, which gives you the little dots. That's a bit of my creative process there.
Darcy, we've got a question for you.
Oh,
hello.
Oh, we can't. I just realised we can really hear you. Oh, yeah. It was on the phone, I thought.
All right, let's try now.
Put it back on, spotlight it back on the computer.
I will do. It'll take me a second to find it. I've got a question for you.
Yeah?
So Morag's got a brilliant question, actually. You talked in the documentary about how we get hold of your comics.
Yes.
Well,
we have them on the internet.
It's all on our website for reading. Originally, it was just going to be a preview on our website. But because my kind of business plan, I guess, was to put like a preview on the website and then have the one sec, sorry, it was coming out of the phone and I could hear myself echoed and I needed it gone. So yeah, we were going to get it in some comic book shops. After we had our little launch party, we were trying to get it in comic book shops. And we did. We got it in one, in Gosh Comics in Soho, which is my favourite comic book shop. So it was really kind of cool to get my work in my favourite shop. But then, of course, lockdown happened and then all the comic book shops shut.
We have no idea if those comic books are okay.
Yeah, those comic books we gave to them, no idea. I'm sure once they've reopened, we'll find out. But
we can...
after that, I decided that I was just going to put the whole comic online because I thought nobody's going to be reading it, nobody's going to be seeing it in a comic book shop and reading it. So I thought instead I would just put the whole thing on the website, and people can read it for free.
What's your website? Should we share that in the chat?
Yes.
Yes. It's.
Do you remember it?
I never remember it. I can always get mixed up with the email. The email is slightly different. So it's Creative Vandalism, but it's got a dash in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll also share the link to your documentary that you both beautifully made this evening. It's such a full and comprehensive documentary of your lockdown experience that the file is enormous. So in here, everybody, you can copy paste this and I can email it out to you afterwards, which is on YouTube, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
We're going to put it live one.
Somebody
show us all tomorrow.
What? Oh yeah. Oh, the documentary is currently unlisted because I uploaded it about a week ago when it finished, and I thought I would wait until we've done this until it's publicly viewable on YouTube. So I'll have to uncheck the box before you can watch it. Although if you click that link, it will work fine.
Yeah, because the link will give it to you directly. It's just that you can't like search for it in a search bar.
Yeah. Thank you.
But yeah, there's a couple of questions.
Yeah, some good.
So there's
Jason's asking, are they loosely based on current topics? I think.
Topical subjects.
Yes and no. It's kind of coincidental that's kind of happened. Like I said, I came up with the idea for the evil Nazi American Empire when I was 14-ish. So, which is when Obama was president, you know. So when America was okay, I mean they weren't. In the public eye they were. And I kind of, the reason I kind of went this whole direction was because I like sci-fi, I watch a lot of sci-fi, and I just was fed up with America always being the good guy and the savior of kind of mankind, especially in like films like Independence Day. I like that film. It's a fun sci-fi action flick, but the
America Saves the Day is a weird trope in terms of like it's in every film.
And
every film. Once could it not be like Papua New Guinea Saves the Day?
Yeah, and I was just so fed up.
They found the enigma, didn't they? Apparently, according to that film.
But I was just so tired of America being this kind of completely, what's the word? The land of hope and freedom, you know, and like the American flag being this kind of symbol of like, yeah, they're the best. And it annoyed me. I just thought, no, I'm going to write some sci-fi, and I'm going to have America be evil, fascist, racist, evil people. And I thought I would just take all American iconography, like the American flag, and I'm just going to stick swastikas on everything. This was me as a edgy 14-year-old writing this, but I've kept it because I thought, no, it's
apt.
At the time, it was edgy because it was like, oh no, America, they're great, they got a black president, you know, and you know,
they're not like that.
They're not like that, and I'm like, no, they are still, and now more than ever, they are. Now they're just open about it. So I guess it's kind of coincidental that. Yes, it is topical and is talking about things going on in the world at the moment.
But it wasn't intended.
But it wasn't intended initially. Yeah.
Quite handy when your work comes.
Grew into it. I guess it's
like, almost prophetic.
It's like art begets. Is it art imitates life, imitates art, imitates life, imitates art, imitates life, and it just keeps going around.
And of course, now with everything that's going on, I will of course be incorporating elements of that to make it more topical. But in terms of did I make it to be topical? No, I didn't.
I have seen the original. You've got the original. Is it in your?
Yeah, I've for my coursework, for my A-level illustration coursework, I did a kind of a prototype, very early stages ideas for this comic book before it had any of the characters that are in it now. Very early stages. It was more just the visuals of it, and it is in my room.
Bedroom's relatively tidy if you wanted to show, but I'm thinking we're wrapping up now.
Yeah.
There's a question from Morag Maguire. You seem to all be working and living 24/7 in a relatively compact space. Do you stake out discrete spaces for each other when you're working on your creative ideas, or do you thrive on sharing and having each other available to talk through your ideas?
Bit of both.
Yeah,
there are days when we don't see each other.
Yeah, there are days where Dad's in his room.
I'm here.
Are you sat down now?
But there are days where Molly is in our bedroom writing away, and I'm sat in the little space I just showed you, drawing or writing, and then Dad's in his bedroom doing who knows what.
You don't want to know.
Some of the things you hear through the walls.
We just hear you swearing and then going, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Molly, we've had a question that's come to me directly by mistake, actually, so you can't see it. But I think possibly because you do some of the background work, we don't know so much about your role. And so there are, you know, you just mentioned about the writing that you do.
Just cooking and cleaning.
I mean, our official roles in if we're going to talk about creative vandalism as kind of like in a corporate way, even though that makes me feel sick to the stomach. But I am the founder / creative director, and Molly is the chief production manager.
Yeah, so that's basically fancy talk, but I make sure things happen and make sure things get done on time.
Because I'm very disorganised.
He's incredibly disorganised, and I'm a long-time bullet journaler, so I do a lot of like writing. I don't do things on computer so much because I have a habit of doing it for a bit and then forgetting. So if I have a physical thing that I have to like write in and like draw out the week that I've got or draw out the month that I've got, it works out a lot better for me. And also I can make it pretty, and then it makes me want to use it more. So because of that, I'm relatively organised out of the two of us, which meant that a lot of the production role stuff falls to me. So I'm in charge of like the scheduling, a lot of the kind of like boring nitty gritty stuff that people kind of are like, oh god, paperwork there. Whereas I'm like, feed the beast. But I am not like a complete sort of like behind the scenes person. I do like to do writing myself, and I play in a rock band in my spare time as well. So like I do a bit of like bass playing, screaming and whatnot. So I do I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, I guess. I do a bit of everything, whatever needs doing.
Like, I think we're both.
I'm rubbish at drawing, and I'm rubbish at painting, and I'm rubbish at that kind of thing. But I'm pretty decent on camera. I have that visual eye. I don't have that kind of hand-eye coordination, but I can do it on a bass guitar.
I think in terms of what we do at Creative Vandalism is we are kind of both jack of all trades. Like. We both write, we both do camera work, we both do editing, we both do directing.
Yeah.
But you swing to more being better at production.
It's more just that I can do it. I can make my brain work that way, and so I just do it.
And I'm very disorganised, so there's no hope for me doing that sort of stuff. And I can draw. I can draw okay-ish, so I do that.
Question from my friend Jason. Do you always jog down Coppermill Lane on Thursday mornings?
Yes, we do.
We do.
We did, well,
not all the time.
Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, we jog because we're not in the pub at the moment. We work in the pub. Normally we're running around up and down a bar, but if we're just sat on our bums in the house, we're not going to get anything done health-wise. So we were like, screw it, let's just start doing Couch to 5K. It's a free app. We need to stay healthy because like we don't have our job to make us run around and lift things and do things. So we do run down Coppermill sometimes.
Pub work wasn't that. It was active, but it wasn't as active as jogging.
No, jogging has been a lot more strenuous.
Yeah, in a good way.
In a good way. I think that's actually, that's the one good thing about lockdown is that it made us start doing exercise, and I suddenly feel like good, and suddenly feel like I enjoy the adrenaline, and it seems like an alien concept. Like if you told me 6 months ago that I'd be jogging because of lockdown, I would never believe you in a million years.
I think that's also helped the creative side of the thing as well, because we'd work in a pub, we'd do that in the evening, wouldn't be back from work till 3 o'clock in the morning, 4, 5 even sometimes. And, we'd go to bed and then wake up in the middle of the afternoon and then have to go to work again that evening. And I would try and do a bit of writing or drawing between then and then. But now it's like we still get up late, still get up around midday, but we'll go and do a jog and then we'll feel good about ourselves and, full of endorphins and stuff. And then it's like, oh, okay, I feel ready, and I've got the rest of the day to focus on doing art.
Yeah.
And it's quite nice. I do miss the pub. So.
I miss the pub. I miss them a lot.
Should we at this stage? Should we ask Dan to come back and join you all?
I'm asleep now.
No, come back for a second. We just in case anyone is kind of longing to get their dinner on to cook, I just say thank you to everyone that's attended this evening. It's brilliant to have you all here. And I'll say quickly, if you are tempted to share your own video with us, please do for your own open studio tour, 3 to 5 minutes, and just send us a YouTube link by the 30th of June. But I will, I think, let you guys carry on if you have any more questions for them, because everyone pretty much has stayed with us and there's some lovely feedback. So yeah, if anyone has a burning question. And I think I also say I'm really grateful, Danny, for all the input you've had into creating this program and the open studios and coming into all of our meetups and designing it with us. So thank you for that as well.